all the understanding.
L'chaim l'bracha. L'chaim. The Heilige Ruzhin, the great and saintly tzaddik, Rabbi Yisroel of Ruzhin, was 4 years old. His father had passed away when he was 6 years old. So this was just 2 years before his father, Reb Sholem of Provich, passed away. Rabbi Yisroel went with his father, and they saw a magnificent sunset. And little Yisroel got so excited, and he said, "Whoa, wow." He said, "Take a look, you see the end of the heaven. You see the end of the heaven." And his father, Reb Sholem, the great tzaddik, said to the little boy, he said, "That's not the end of the sky, because above that sky there is another sky. And beyond that sky there is another sky. And beyond that other sky there is another sky. And so it goes on and on and on. And beyond, there is a very, 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 very big creator who creates and created everything." And little Yisroel was so taken by the words of his father that it touched him so deeply. He suddenly felt, he described, such a powerful awe and such a powerful sense of admiration and excitement about the Eibishter, about God. He felt it literally in his physically, a physical sensation. And he related that he feels that sensation as he felt it the first time his entire life. Rabbi Yisroel of Ruzhin is the tzaddik that when he was a little boy, and he was on Cheder, and his Rebbe was teaching the Mishnah, where it says, if a person gets lost in the field, out in the forest, and he loses track of time, and he doesn't know when is Shabbos. So there's a halacha exactly what to do in such a situation. Rabbi Yisroel asked his Rebbe, the little boy, maybe 5 years old, and he said, "I don't understand." So his Rebbe explained it a second time. The boy, a person is out in the field and in the forest, got lost. You know, if in the forest you're lost and you don't see people, so after a while you can get a little confused, not remember which day it is, because there's nothing really to, you're lost for a couple of days, like which day you don't remember, and it can happen that you don't know it's Shabbos. And the boy said, "Rebbe, I don't understand. How can you not know that it's Shabbos?" So the Rebbe explained, his teacher explained it a third time. And he said, "How do you know it?" He's like, you know it's Shabbos because your place, your mother, house starts looking different. You're cooking, you're baking, people are getting ready, they're showering, they're cleaning the house. But you realize when someone is in a forest and there's nothing, all he sees every day is the trees and the sky, and everything is exactly the same. How is one supposed to know if they're lost after a few days that they forgot that it's Shabbos? So what's so hard to understand? And Yisroel said, "That's how you know it's Shabbos." So the Rebbe said, "How do you know it's Shabbos?" He says, "You look up in the sky and you see it's Shabbos." So they tell the story of the person who spent his entire life climbing and climbing and climbing. That's a liar life. He spent a couple of months trying to climb Mount Everest, with tremendous difficulty and hardship and making headway and then failing and falling and then again and again and trial and error, again and again and again. And finally, after many, many, many attempts, which lasted many years, he managed to get on top of the mountain. And when he got on top of the mountain, he was so happy that he finally achieved the most unbelievable achievement. He sees the whole world in front of him from up there. Then he sees a little kid, and he can't believe it. How in the world did the little kid get up here? So he looks at him and he says, "What are you doing here?" He says, "I was born here." When we think of Rabbi Yisroel of Ruzhin, that's exactly it. Rabbi Yisroel of Ruzhin, from all the Tzadikim, was born on the top of the mountain. The sense of Rabbi Yisroel of Ruzhin, if you read, now you can read about lots of Tzadikim, but the most powerful sense you get when you hear about the Heilige Ruzhiner, you read about him, is that here is the Tzadik who is born in the highest peak. All the Tzadikim of his generation, many of them so much older than him, and in a sense that worked on themselves and reached and learned, and they all were awed and humbled by Rabbi Yisroel of Ruzhin. The Heilige Ruzhiner was a neshama that's like from outside, from beyond, 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 beyond. His avodah was very inward. People saw very little on the outside. It wasn't like many of the tzaddikim in his generation. They were fiery, flames of fire. It was deep. It was inner. The Ruzhiner was not known to be seen learning Torah. The holy Ruzhiner said, if I would be on an island for 1,000 years, in an island in the middle of nowhere, for 1,000 years, I would be in an island in the middle of nowhere, and I wouldn't have one Jewish book. I wouldn't cease for 1 second from my being, in my thought, in my mind, in deep dveikus in the Orein Soif in the Eibishter. 1,000 years on an island alone without one Jewish book, and a neshama like that, the physical did not have any impact on the holy Ruzhiner's soul. Great Tzadikim said the entire avodah of his great-grandfather, now you realize, the Heilige Ruzhiner is the epitome of yichus amongst Chassidim. He is the ultimate dynasty in terms of yichus. His great-grandfather was the holy Mezritcha Magid, the successor of the holy Baal Shem Tov. The Mezritcha Magid had a son who was not a human being at all. He was known to be Rabbi Avram HaMalach. And everybody knew that the son of the Mezritcha Magid, he wasn't shaykh. The reason he didn't take over to become a Rebbe, because he wasn't shaykh to this world at all. And that's why they called him a malach, literally. He can burn anybody that would walk. And like I said, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son walked out of the thing and they burnt everybody. That's Rabbi Avram HaMalach was. The door keeps on closing downstairs. We have to put a better. Yeah, thank you. So it says, and the Rabbi Avram HaMalach had a son whose name was Reb Shalom of Provich. So the great Tzadikim said that the entire avodah of the Mezritcha Magid and the entire avodah and the whole work of his son Rabbi Avram HaMalach and the entire work of the great and saintly Reb Shalom of Provich was only in order to bring into the world the holy neshama of Rabbi Yisroel of Ruzhin. It is said about him by the great tzaddikim that he possessed within him the neshama of the holy Baal Shem Tov. And that's why he was Rabbi Yisroel. They mentioned he was a great. He had thousands and thousands of chassidim. When the holy Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya, came out from Petersburg after his arrest, and he passed by various different places, and he came to the city of Bardichev. He said that the Reb Shalom of Provich had then afterward had passed away. The mother of the Ruzhiner was the second one of two children, two boys. The mother of the holy Ruzhiner brought her two sons to visit, to see the great tzaddik, the Alter Rebbe, Shneur Zalman of Liadi. When the little boy, the Ruzhiner, was only 6 years old at the time, the Alter Rebbe said that I see two beams of light coming from Provich. Two beams of light. These are the two brothers. The younger one, Rabbi Yisroel, the Alter Rebbe, you realize, the great master of the deepest esoteric teachings of the Torah, meets this little boy, and the little boy of 6 years old has a question. Just to enter into the mind of a neshama of Atzilus, a neshama who didn't get impacted when it came into this world at all, a neshama that's in its pristine godly state. The little boy asks, and he knew who they asked this question. It's a type of question you couldn't ask to just anybody. He asked the Alter Rebbe, I don't understand. He said, every day we say Shema Yisroel, and after we say Shema Yisroel, we say V'ahavta. He says, how is it possible that you can say V'ahavta after you say Shema Yisroel? When you say Shema Yisroel, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that means your entire existence is overtaken by the oneness of God. And the oneness of Hashem is so powerful, and it's so strong, and dominates to the point that you cease to exist. Okay, this is a 6-year-old boy. That you don't have any self-awareness. You don't exist anymore in the overwhelming presence of God, of the Ein Sof, who's the only reality. So then who is the one that's loving Hashem? Yeah, this little boy. Who is loving? V'ahavta, you should love. There's no one there that exists to love. If all that exists is the Eibishter. The Alter Rebbe said, I answered him a very, very long answer. That if the oceans were ink and all the forests were parchment, it would be difficult to write down that answer that I wrote, that I answered him. And the little boy understood. It says that little boy understood. The Heilige Ruzhiner, Ramoshe Tzvi of Savron, asked the Heilige Ruzhiner, he says, Rebbe, what do you do with all the Chassidim who come to you? Thousands of Chassidim. What do you do with all the Chassidim? They come to you for Tishrei, for Rosh Hashanah. What do you do with them? He says, the Ruzhiner answers, he says, when the Chassidim come to me, each and every single one is etched in my heart. Every single Chassid, he gets etched in my heart. And then when it comes to Tkiyah Shofar, and I'm holding the Shofar, I open my heart. And all the kvitlach, and all the little notes that are given to the Heilige Tzaddik, that are given to me, they fall out directly into the Eibishter's hands. Heilige Ruzhiner takes all the neshamas. He has them all in his heart. The Ruzhiner said about himself, he asked the Ruzhiner, even though the Ruzhiner said one time, they say about me that I don't know how to learn. Even though mir endigen Shas, we finish Shas once a month, we go through Shas. But he said, they say about me that I don't know how to learn. But the Ruzhiner said like this, the entire Torah is included in the first pasuk of Bereshis. First pasuk of Bereshis includes the entire Torah. All of that pasuk, that's Torah concentrate in the first pasuk. The entire pasuk Bereshis is included in the first word Bereshis. Bereshis contains within it the whole pasuk. The word Bereshis, super concentrate now, right? The word Bereshis is included in the bays of Bereshis. The bays of Bereshis is included in the dot, in the pintala. In the pintala, that's the potent point, where all of the Torah is included. And my soul is rooted in that dot. I'm the pintala of Bereshis. Do we know? Do you know that? Do you know how to learn? Can you say a good svara? It's the pintala of Bereshis, a neshama koleles that includes all souls. That's what the tzaddik, the holy Ruzhiner. It is known that the Ruzhiner used to, the heilige Ruzhiner, by the way, the name the heilige Ruzhiner. You know, we're living in a world where we just label everybody. Everybody gets Harav, Agoyin, HaKadosh, holy, this, everybody. But in the times back, when they coined the name of someone, they said someone, there was only one tzaddik that they called the Chayze. Imagine if they start writing about everybody. HaChayze is coming to town. There's only one Chayze. There's the Chayze of Lublin, even though there were others. Everybody they coined. The Ruzhiner is known as the Heilige Ruzhiner. In Chabad, there is a tradition, we only say the Heilige on 3 people. The Holy Ari, the Heilige Baal Shem Tov, and the Holy Ruzhiner. So you realize where we're putting the Ruzhiner on. The word, the Heilige Ruzhiner, is a phrase that came from the Tzemach Tzedek. Tzemach Tzedek, third Chabad Rebbe, what is it called? A contemporary and a very dear friend of the Heilige Ruzhiner, referred to the Ruzhiner as the Heilige Ruzhiner. So the Heilige Ruzhiner, going back to Ramosha Tzvi of Savron, so the Ruzhiner used to conduct himself with tremendous wealth. He lived a life, they built him a palace. He lived like a nobleman. And that's why it was a big chiddush by the other Rabbeim. And he was the modern Rebbe. He didn't wear the white garments like the Mekubalim used to wear and the Chassidic Rebbes used to wear. And he didn't live a life of poverty. He led a tremendous life of melucha, of royalty, of kingship. That's why his Chassidim were absolutely certain that the Ruzhiner was Melech HaMoshiach. He had all the regality and the royalty of King Mamash. And he dressed different. He wore the nobleman's clothing. His wife, the wives in the Ruzhiner court, the whole idea bichlal of a court. But say the Hasidic court, it begins with the Ruzhiner. Because the Ruzhiner had a whole court. He had musicians, and he had gestures, and he had a melucha, unbelievable. And when he traveled somewhere, he traveled 4 white horses, a royal carriage decorated in gold. So once someone told him that when another tzaddik of his generation, the Savroner, once came to a town, and they came out, and he was on a wagon, and everybody came out to greet the tzaddik, and they were all excited to see him. The Savroner was so bothered by the kavod, by the honor, by the respect that they were giving him, that he said as follows. He thought to himself. He said, the whole kavod, why do they respect? I'm coming in a carriage, and the carriage is being pulled by horses. And the horse is a smelly creature. And then he was going on and thinking about how smelly the horse is. And did you ever see a carcass of a horse? And when they skin the horse and they take off the hide, and he reached a point that he was so disgusted that he vomited in the wagon from all the honor that they were making for him. He brought himself to that state of feeling so yucked out. So the Ruzhiner hears that. And the Ruzhiner says, a pella, it's a wonder that a tzaddik has to go through all of that to have to deal with this, with the honor and with the respect. Mir haben an andere Weg. We have another way. He says, imagine you have a minister, a nobleman, who is a very important minister, and he's above all the other ministers, above the other. So whenever he's going places, all the ministers, he's like the top, he's the prime minister. So all the ministers all show him respect. They all bow down to him like it was by Haman, yeah? Everybody's giving him respect and so on and so forth. It happens that this nobleman, this great nobleman, is strolling along side by side with the king and the king. But the people that he comes to, the place that he comes to, they don't know the king, but they know him. And they all come in front of him and they're all bowing and and he doesn't know what to do with himself. He wants the earth to open up, because in the presence of the king, how in the world are they giving him covet when the king is right over here? How dare they give covet to him and the king? And that's the Ruzhiner when he's riding in his golden wagon, in his beautiful white horses. He lives every second with the presence of the Eibishter being right over there, and he wants the earth to open up, to swallow him up. How can you give psakovid or something in the presence of the Eibishter? And being that we're talking about the Ruzhiner's wagon, this is another tzaddik living in the times of the Ruzhiner. There was a very dear friend of the Ruzhiner, the great saintly Rameir of Premishlan. And the mayor of Premishlan was the total opposite. He didn't have a penny in his house, because every last groshin, every last ruble, and every last penny went to tzedakah. Many tzadikim had a minhag. They would not go to sleep at night if they had 1 penny in the house. Everything had to be given out to charity. And it was a house that was broken. So Rameir Premishlan said about himself versus the Ruzhiner. He said, the Ruzhiner, by him, it's fulfilled the pasuk. What does the pasuk say? The pasuk says, Hoin v'oisher bebeisai, wealth and treasures are in his house, v'tzidkasai oimedes la'ad, and his righteousness stands forever. And by me, it's fulfilled the pasuk. The same kapitel Tehillim. Pizar nosan le'avyonim. He spreads all of his penny, every cent he has, le'avyonim, to the poor people. Tzidkasai oimedes la'ad. The same kapitel Tehillim mentions 2 people who are tzidkasai oimedes la'ad. One of them is hoin v'oisher bebeisai, and the other one is Pizar Nosan Levyoinim, and both of them are Tzidkasai Oimedes La'ad. So here's the story. Rameir Premishlan is once traveling on his broken down, you can't call it a wagon, we'll call it a cart. A rickety cart that's patched up and broken, extreme poverty. And he has one Altichka horse that's come alive, Shleptzach. Poor horse, you look at it and you go out, V'nachmanis, and the horse is schlepping this cart with Rameyan on it. And who's coming down the road on the other side? The royal carriage of the Heilige Ruzhin. And the horses are galloping, Gesundte stallion, fair dazeh, white, beautiful. And they're taking the wagon, and the 2 tzaddikim meet. And the holy Ruzhiner looks out of the window of his coach and he sees Rameir and he says, and Rameir turns to the Ruzhiner and he says, what's this? The Ruzhiner says, I have good horses, because just in case we get stuck in the blotter, just in case the wagon gets caught in the mud, when you have such good horses, they schlep it out, 1, 2, 3, gesund, arois geschleppt von blotter. It pulls them out from the blotter, 1, 2, 3. And a Meirel says, and me, Meirel, because I don't have such good horses, I have to be careful not to fall into the blotter in the first place. I watch out not to get stuck in the mud to begin with. So either way, Either way. If you find yourself having a gesunte Pferd, then it's good. We can schlep ourselves in them, or else we have to be careful not to get into the mud in the first place. Whatever it is, we're asking the Tzadikim that if we are in the blood, that to pull us out very quickly, pull out all the Jewish people. L'chaim, 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 l'bracha.
No, someone dropped his card. You need to make an announcement that someone dropped their card and tell them and ask who it is.
Okay. I know who this is. It's Roy. Where's Roy? Roy Peretz. Where is he? He was here? His name is Roy Peretz. There's another Roy Peretz. According to Shlomo Carlebach, this song traces its way back to the Ruzhiner. Not to the Ruzhiner. These are nephews? Everybody join.
percussion choir here. We want to try a little experiment. Just everybody could get involved as well as the boys. So we're gonna do a little thing. I'm gonna do a drum beat with my hands, and you guys are gonna copy me on the drums. All right, you ready? Wait. I'm gonna do it first, and then you'll follow. Oh wow! Can everybody join me?
All the great special powerful days which should bring bracha and atzlacha. It should bring bracha and atzlacha and incredible success and everything that anybody needs, whether it's a refuah, healing, refuah shalema for everyone that needs a refuah, and children for those who need a special bracha regarding children, and parnasa barchava for all of us, and shidduchim for all those. Wouldn't it be amazing if there would be like at least 10 mazel tovs in Chodesh Kislev for those who need shidduchim in this room? I think we should find. Let's have them popping one after another. L'chaim, big mazel tov in advance. L'chaim l'bracha. Special, I want to thank those who helped sponsor tonight. Special bracha to the Kreisbergs. Moshe and your wife and your whole mishpacha. Big, big blessings. And the wedding. Mazel tov. It should be b'shah tova mitzlachas. Binyan adeyad. Only good things. To the finers, big bracha. The schus of the Holy Ruzhin should be there for you and your family. All that you need, all that you want. Rabbi Perry, a bracha to you. They should bench you. Nachas from the children and only good. Alle gute Sachen. Mordechai and Rivki Katz, I don't see them here, but they were mishtatef tonight. They should bench them. A lot of big blessings. Michal Slotowitz, should bench her. And her daughter with Refuah Shalema. And only good. And if I forgot anybody, maybe it'll come to my mind. As a Hashem soon. Chaim. Chaim ulubracha. We're living in pretty intense times. There was once the elder of the Admoirim, the time of the Ruzhin, was the holy and saintly, the Apterov, Rabbi Avram Yeshua Heschel of Apt. From the Ziknei Admoirim, he actually became a Rebbe in the town of Mezhebush. So he was a tremendous admirer of the Ruzhin. The Ruzhin was much younger than him, and he was like a very call a fan, like admirer of Rabbi Yisroel of Ruzhin. When he noticed this powerful neshama, even when before the Ruzhin was born, when his mother was pregnant with the holy Ruzhin, she came in front. She came to get a bracha from the Apterov, and the Apterov said to her, "You are right now. You are an Aron HaKodesh. You have a Sefer Torah inside of you. The holiness of the Ruzhin, the holiness of a Sefer Torah." The Apterov said about the Ruzhin that the Malach gives a slap on everybody's lips. The Malach teaches the Torah to each and every one of us when we're in our mother's womb. We learn the entire Torah, but then the Malach comes and taps us on the lips, and we forget everything we learned so that we can toil and get it all back through our work. He says there was one human being that wasn't tapped by the Malach, and that's the holy Rabbi Yisroel of Ruzhin. And therefore he says the entire Torah is in front of him. A black fire on a white fire, the way it was given at Sinai. That's the way it is in the holy Ruzhin. He came one time when the Ruzhin was just maybe little 13 years old or something like that, and his gartel fell off. The Apterov maybe was 50 years older than him, picked up the gartel, and he said he's going to do Galila on a Sefer Torah. And he put the gartel on to this young kid on the Heilige Ruzhin. When the Ruzhin got married when he was 13. And by the way, he married the Barditchever was by the Chassan of the holy Rabbi Yitzchak. Was it a granddaughter of the Barditchever? I'm not sure. And the Barditchever said, nishto azoy chasanim like this. He says, Rebbeinu Shalom, du hasnish, he says, you don't have so many chasanim like this. You don't have too many grooms like this. But in any case, one time there was a lot of trouble for the Jews in Ukraine and Russia, whatever. And there was an Eisar, it was a very, very dark time for the Jews at that time. And the Ohev Yisrael went and he decreed upon the community a series of fasts. And he wanted that people, and he was very strict on those fasts. He demanded that everybody fast. Women, men, and he was very insistent that everybody should follow these fasts because we have to do whatever we can to nullify the decree. And as we told, as mentioned, the Ruzhin was much younger than him, a new Rebbe. The Heilige Ruzhin when he heard that the Oiv Yisroel instituted fasts, said, call me my musicians. And he had his capella come, his choir come, and his musical accompaniment. He had the violins and some of the drummers like you, and the whole chevra that were known as the Ruzhiner's little symphony. And they were playing before him. And that was, he dismissed the fast, and he asked for the music to play. When the Oiv Yisroel heard about it, instead of getting upset, the Oiv Yisroel said, Mir kennen sich vergleichen zu ihm. Can we compare ourselves to him? He follows what it says in the pasuk. When there will be a time when there will be a war in your land, you will blow with chatzoitzros, and the pasuk says, and you will be saved, and something like that. You will be saved from your enemies. So in that kind of thing, only the Ruzhiner is able to do that. So the Eibishter should help that from our skatem b'chatzoitzros tonight, we should bring bracha and Yeshua, not just for the people that are here, not just to the people in the city, but to the entire Jewish people. And the schus of the Holy Ruzhiner, because we made a Melaveh Malka for him. For sure his holy soul is present. He wasn't in any way shayach to any gashmias during his lifetime. The Ruzhiner once said to people when he went to a Suda, to a meal, the Ruzhiner said, how do we go to a meal? This is what he said, how do we go to a meal? Koidem, first thing is, we lift our body up to become part of the neshama. Der guf hebe miroif to the neshama. Mir machen von the guf neshama. He makes his guf into his neshama. Then we attach our neshama to the orein soif, and that's how we eat. So you can understand what kind of eating we're talking about. His guf becomes neshama. His neshama becomes one with the Eibishter, and that's how he eats. They say about the Ruzhiner, Tzadikim said about him, that his guf had the holiness of 1,000 neshamas. The light, that was his guf. They also say about him that, like by Eliyahu Hanavi, it says he was chavush ba'azr oyer. He had a gartel. Oyer also means hide, which means can mean the skin, the body. He says the Ruzhiner was like Eliyahu Hanavi. Whenever he wants, he puts on his body, and whenever he wants, he takes off his body. Doesn't have to be in his body. He exits it, puts it on, takes it off. And here's an amazing story. Rabbi Reuven of Karlin, this is not the first Rabbi Reuven of Karlin, but the Rabbi Reuven of Karlin known as the Beis Aaron. So he related, he heard the Ruzhiner himself told him as follows. The Ruzhiner said, I'll tell you a story that happened. There were two people, two women, two couples, lived in two different towns. The women were friends. One of these ladies were big believers in tzadikim. But her husband was not a believer in the tzadikim. The other woman was not a believer in tzadikim. But she married a man who was believed was a chassid. So you had two couples. Each one had one of them that the person who was a chassid, not the best he was a chassid, but he believed in tzadikim, fell ill, and he wanted to send someone on his behalf to the tzaddik. He had no one to send. He sent his wife. His wife didn't want to go because she laughed at the whole thing. But her husband was getting very sick, and she couldn't. So there was nothing else she was able to do. She didn't want to be without. She didn't want him. She wanted him. So she conceded. She says she's going to travel. As she's traveled, she decided she's going through a town. She's on her way to Ruzhin. And on her way, she stopped by her friend's house. When she comes to her friend, and her friend here, she's going, her friend who doesn't believe in the tzaddikim, you're going to the Rebbe, I'm coming along with you. Because I also have a problem. What's my problem? They have an inn, and they didn't pay the rent. They were having a hard time, a hard year. They didn't have the monies to pay. And the squire of the Poritz was demanding that they pay the rent. And if not, then it's a bitzaris. Didn't have a penny to pay. So she said, you're going to the Rebbe, I'm coming along with you. So the two of them traveled to Ruzhin. The Ruzhin is telling the story, that these two women came to him. The Gabbai outside is writing the kvitlach. The Gabbai writes the kvittel for each one of them, a little note he gives to them. And so he writes, this one is asking for refuah shalema for her husband, the other one is asking for a situation that problem with the rent, and she should be saved from the wrath of the Poritz, or somehow be able to pay. Somehow, in the confusion, the two women they ended up with the wrong kvittel. So the one that had the sick husband ended up with the kvittel, with the pond that was written for the other one, the one that they came into the Rebbe, and the Ruzhiner gives a bracha to the woman whose husband, who needed to pay the woman whose husband was sick. The Ruzhiner gives her a bracha. No. The woman whose husband was sick. So the Ruzhiner said to her, who gave him the kvittel, that they have to pay the rent. So the Ruzhiner gave her a bracha, the Eibishter vet helfen. What he says, the Eibishter vet helfen. The other woman who's telling about how her husband is, who has the the problem with the inn, gave the kvittel over, asking for a bracha for her husband that's sick. So the Ruzhiner says, no, darf man stellen bankes. What's bankes? Bankes are leeches. People would do leeches treatments. They would put these bloodsuckers and they put them on the body, and would let the blood out, and then you would put glass. You put the leeches, you would put these suction cups. He says this to this woman who couldn't pay the rent. Okay, she's a believer. She was a believer. She didn't argue. It was a strange answer to get for her situation. And she travels back home. She tells her husband, and he's waiting for her to come home to figure out how to pay the rent. He says, we're going to put leeches. And he says, leeches? We're telling bankers. I don't know. But this, all right, he really thinks it's strange. He dismisses it. Fine. Meanwhile, the day comes, and they don't have anything. They tried whatever to do, but then there's nothing. There's no Yeshua, and they know that they could be in really big trouble. So his wife insists, let's go put the leeches. So he gets into the bed, and she covers him with leeches. They got a hold of leeches. And I looked at him, and he's bleeding, mama, from head to toe. And she put. Meanwhile, the guy, Poritz sends the guy to come to collect the rent, and he comes. And he was giving them an eviction notice that they're going to be kicked out. And he walks in the house, and he sees this man. He got really scared. It looks like he goes back to the Poritz, and he says, I came there. The guy is covered in blood. Look over there. So he says, I don't believe you. I can't believe it. He says, yesterday, just the other day, I saw him. He looked totally fine. He was he says, bring him to me. So he sent a couple of his chevra. They came down. They picked him up in the bed, and they brought him. They brought him in. The wife of the Poritz worked out really well. She happened to be there, standing over there. She takes a look, and she was horrified because the man in Nebuch looked horrible. So she says, what happened? He said, so at that moment, some manga fell in a story. It occurred to him. What was the story? He said, you know what? I was running around the last few days, running back all over to borrow money and this, to be able, because I know I have to pay up. I didn't have the money. And I ran everywhere. And with the Eibishter's help, I borrowed a lot of money, and I was on my way back home yesterday. And to my mazel, a group of thugs got a hold of me, and they beat me up, and they robbed, and they took all the money. And the woman is listening, this noble, this the wife, she can't believe it. She said, I'm so sorry, and it's all our fault. Terrible. She said, this is horrible. She tells her husband, she says, what? This is Arachmanis. She says, on our behalf, you got beaten like this. Uy. She says, you know what? She says, of course, on the situation like this, there's no eviction. There's no eviction. She says, not only that, she says, you need to get yourself a doctor. So we're going to pay for the doctor. She tells her husband, we're going to pay for the doctor. In addition to this, he says, you've gotten into debt. because they stole all that. They stole all the money because you borrowed all the money from the people. Now you have gotten yourself into debt. So you know what? You have 3 years free rent. You don't have to pay any rent for the next 3 years. Free rent on your rent. So the Ruzhiner said. So the Rabbi Aaron, the Beis Aaron said that Ruzhiner told me that when they came to him, he had no idea about this. Now, he gave her a bracha. But this woman, with her simplicity of Emunah Tzadikim, that if it came out of the Rebbe, they should put leeches. So by her simple Emunah, she opened up a whole new Yeshua. A whole incredible miracle that happened. A simple. He got a bracha, that's also a good sign. He saved himself the leeches too. Chaim. Chaim on the bracha.
So she should go pick it up. Is there?
No. We can order more. Tell her we can order more. This story? I saw it in Separate Zevin. Chassidic Tales. I just read it today, the English book. Unless you want the Zalmi, order 3. Order 3. Let me hear your voice. Areni Asmarich. Ki koilech noe, because your voice. Ki koilech orev, because your voice is pleasant. Umarech nove, and your appearance is very beautiful. It reminds me of a story. The Saraf of Strelisk, Rab Uri of Strelisk, known as the Saraf of Strelisk. Before he passed away, he said to his Chassidim, they were all worried that they're not going to have a Rebbe. The Rebbe he was leaving the world, and they knew moments. So he said to them, most people, it's not shaykh for them to have the ultimate das, the ultimate knowledge, until after 40. But he is the one who has the full, complete das even before younger than 40. And then when he passed away, his chassidim knew that there must be, the Rebbe that he's hinting to is a very young man. So they looked at all the Rabbeim at that time, and the only one that fit the bill, younger than 40, was the Ruzhiner. The Ruzhiner, by the way, became a Rebbe when he was 16 years old. His father passed away when he was 6 years old. He went to stay. His older brother raised him, and his older brother was just a few years older than him. And he stayed by his older brother, got married when he was 13. When he was 16 years old, he became a Rebbe in Provich. Then he was a Rebbe in Skver. His son-in-law was Rabbi Yitzchak of Skver later. From there, he went to Ruzhin. So Rabbi Uri sent so the Chassidim knew it's the Ruzhiner. Now the Strelitzke Chassidim, he was known as the Saraf. They were a little bit related to the Karliner dynasty. And they davened like Karliner Chassidim. In Karlin, when you daven, it's davening is just flaming fire for Karliner Chassidim. And they daven, they shout, they yell, they cry, whoa! You ever want to experience something interesting? In Yerushalayim, go into the Karliner shul. Here they daven a regular mincha. It's like, whoa, unbelievable, especially Shabbos. And then, or you can go to in Borough Park, there's a Stoliner shul. In any case, so these Strelitzke Chassidim come to Ruzhin, and they came into the shul, and they davened the mincha, and they davened like Strelitzke Chassidim daven, and they were shouting and screaming. The Ruzhiner walked by, and he asked, "Was it this? What's this?" And they said, "These are Strelitzke Chassidim that are here." Okay. After davening, these Chassidim come to the Ruzhiner, and the Ruzhiner says, "So what are you doing here?" So they said what their Rebbe said, and they're looking for a Rebbe. And that's why they came over here, because from what it seems to be saying, the Rebbe said that you're the one. So he says, "Okay, I'm going to accept you as my Chassidim," he said. "But we have another derech over here. There's no yelling over here. We have another derech. Our derech is ha'encha b'seiser ram. We also yell. But b'seiser ram, the thunder and the thing, b'seiser, is kept b'seiser hidden." And he said, you should know, he says, there's two kinds of love. There is love between a brother and a sister. And there is a love between a husband and a wife. He says the love between siblings, the love between a brother and a sister is an open love. They can show affection to each other out in the public. And it's no problem. There's nothing to be modest about. A brother and a sister. It's okay that they're a husband and a wife. They have really, really, really intense love for each other. But it's in a tzniistic manner. It's something that's done very quietly. He says, and let me ask you, he says, from a brother and a sister, from all that noisy love, there isn't any children. And for wie kommt Kinder, where is their children? From the silent, more hidden, pneumistic love of a husband and a wife. That's what he was explaining, the service in Ruzhin, and the love between the Yid and the Eibishter is a romance. It's a powerful romance, but it doesn't have to always be noticeable to the onlooker on the outside. A little tznius in that relationship is pretty good. Pretty good. The Ruzhiner being such a malchus, the Ruzhiner behaving in such a royal way, caused a lot of jealousy. And a lot people were saying about the Holy Ruzhiner that he sees himself as a king and he wants to be the king of the Jewish people. And there were a lot of snitching and a lot of thing going on. And it evoked the wrath of the Russian government. They weren't happy that a Jew is not behaving like a Jew should behave. Scared and hunched over like a gullus yid. The Ruzhin wanted to pick the Yidden up and reveal in them that they're real Bnei Malachim. And he behaved like a king. They didn't like it. So they were looking to find something on him for a long time. And says gelungen in Tovkuf Tzadik Ches, which is 1838, it worked out for them. What happened was, there were two Moisrim, there were two informers, Jewish informers. And one was, I think his name was Schwarzman, and the other one, they know their names of these two people. And they were causing a lot of tzaddis. And in Shulchan Aruch, there is a halacha that when people inform on other Jews, then at certain times, if it gets really bad, then you can, if need be say, they can bump them. And that's what they did. These two guys ended up dead. And the blame was blamed here and there. A bunch of Jews were arrested on this. It was a third Musar who actually snitched and was a big rabbi that was arrested. A bunch of other Yidden that were arrested. And the blame also went along because the Ruzhiner, they said, was also involved or gave permission or gave his consent to this assassinations. So what happened was, the Ruzhiner was arrested, taken to Kiev. The Ruzhiner then said, Sarim radafunu chinam, ministers, they chase me, chinam, I'm innocent, and therefore I'm not afraid. The pasuk says before, I'm not afraid. But what does scare me is midvarcha, from your word, maybe this is decree from you, pachad libi. But once I realize that this is dvarcha, this is your decree, sasanaychi alim rasecha, I'm happy, because if this is your will, then so is. In the end, there were a few of them were given very, very severe punishment, like 500 to 2,000 lashes. And a few of them died, they didn't survive. The rabbi that was arrested was sent off and maybe they sent him to exile. The Ruzhiner was kept in prison for 22 months. It's a very long for a Rebbe. You're talking about. And the Alter Rebbe was in jail 53 days. The Ruzhiner was in a cell in Kiev for 22 months, almost 2 years. Then finally, by the trial, they finally released the Ruzhiner, but they put him under extreme scrutiny and house arrest. They were watching over him. So he was there. He stayed in Ruzhin for a while, and then the Ruzhin. Oh, by the way, the Ruzhin said that this punishment came to him. He said, why? Because when he was 5 years old, by his Chumash Suda, they had a Chumash Suda, he said Torah for all the other kids. And it was like impressive. And they gave him a Yashikoyach. And in that Yashikoyach, he felt, 1 second, he felt a little bit of a sense of pride of how well he did. And because of that, he sat for 2 years in that Kiev prison. The Ruzhiner came to Kishinev. He was back in Ruzhin, but they felt a lot of pressure, and he wasn't. So he managed to get permission to go to Kishinev. He went to Kishinev, and there too they put him under arrest, house arrest. And somehow the Chassidim found out that there was a gzeira brewing that they want to send him to Siberia. So Chassidim leave it up to Chassidim. They managed to get him, bribe their way. The Ruzhiner Bechlal had a lot of wealthy Chassidim. There was a lot of wealth in Ruzhin. So one of the things the Ruzhiner says, the Ruzhiner said the reason why he's behaving in such wealth, because when the tzaddik behaves with a rachvus, like I spoke today by the Kiddush, with gadlus amoichin, with a breitkeit, and not in a constricted way, he's mashpia, tremendous bracha to the world. So he says, there's a famous statement of the Gemara. The Gemara says, Kol ha'olam nizan b'shvil chanina b'ni. The whole world the Eibishter said that the whole world he's feeding because of one tzaddik, Chanina ben Dosa, right, one of the sages of the Talmud. Chanina ben Dosa, the whole world. But Chanina beni, and Chanina, Dailoi, for him it's enough, bekav charuvim. He has a little bit of boxer. Charuvim is taich. How do they taich in English? Charuvim. Carobs. He has a little bit of, that's all he needs. And the whole world is getting parnasa because of Chanina ben Dosa. So here, so the Holy Ruzhin has said like this. Kol ha'olam nizan, the whole world is being given parnasa. Bishvil, what's a shvil? A shvil is a path, a very narrow trail. He says, you know why the whole world is getting parnasa only through a very narrow channel? Because the tzaddik hador, Chanina ben Dosa, dailoi, he's living a life of meager. All he has is a kav charuvim. He has one little bit of charuvim, of carobs. So if that's all that he needs, so it causes a tzimtzum above, and everybody's getting their parnassas through this tiny little shvil, through this. But if the tzaddik behaves like the Ruzhin, royal, and with all that, so he brings abundant of bracha to the world. So in any case, the Chassidim of Ruzhin were very wealthy. The Rebbe is wealthy. The Chassidim were wealthy, and they managed to get him. And they had two of them that were pledged security. They got him across the border and they took him to Moldavia. What is it called? Moldova. Yeah, Moldova. So he was in Moldova. Then they still didn't feel safe over there, and they smuggled him across, and he ended up in the Austrian government, in the Austrian territory, and he ended up in the city of Sadiger, which is right next to where's Sadiger? No, it's a big today where the Ruzhin is buried. It's a big city, no? It's not called Sadiger. What? Not Salzburg. In any case, he was there. The Ruzhiner came. Now it's interesting. The Russian government, the Tsar, was so angry that the Ruzhiner slipped away from him that he was putting pressure that the Austrians should extradite him. So there was a lot of pressure on the Austrian government. What did the Chassidim do? So they came up with a maisa. They said that the Yisroel Friedman that they're looking for, this is not this Yisroel Friedman that the Russians are looking for. This Yisroel Friedman is not, his name is Yisroel. They forged papers, and they said his name is really Yisroel. I forgot already the other name that they had. 40 years ago, this fellow, he's born in Austria, he ran away and he went to Russia. And he stayed by the Pshalom of Provich. He took him into his house. And because of that, he got the name Yisroel Friedman. And they did it so well that they made up a ganze Maisa that this is not the same Yisroel. And that Yisroel Friedman, Ruzhin, wherever he is, this is another Yisroel, whatever. So, the Austrian accepted that. And therefore, they didn't follow through on the extradition. And the Ruzhiner has built his Melucha up in Sadiger. The amazing thing was that all the Tzadikim of the generation were coming to Ruzhin. The biggest of the biggest. The Chedushei Arim came. The Rechaim of Tzanz came. The Rabbi Yitzchak of Vorka came. Talking about the giants of the giants. The Rimenever, Rabbi Tzvi Hersh of Rimenev, later was a Mechutin of his. The Ruzhiner married his wife after Rabbi Tzvi Hersh of Rimenev passed away. The Ruzhiner's second marriage married her. In any case, these were all Chassidim. When the great tzaddik, when the rabbi Reb Shimon Sofer, they asked the holy tzanzer, "You are a goyen adir." The tzanzer Rav was a goyen adir, a gadol b'Yisrael, kol ha'Torah kula, plus a big tzaddik. Why are you traveling to the Ruzhiner? What's geist in Ruzhin? A tzaddik, but we don't know of him as being a big lamdan, and we don't know that about him. Like, what's geist in there? So the holy tzanzer answered as follows. He says there are two mountains, and this really coins it, and really hits the nail on the head. He says there are two special places in the world, two mountains. One of them is Har Sinai, and the other one is Har HaMoriah. Har Sinai, the Torah was given on Har Sinai. On Har HaMoriah is where the Beis HaMikdash is built. So why was the Beis HaMikdash built on Har HaMoriah? Why didn't the Eibishter choose to be Sheicha in the Shechina? Why did he choose to do it on Har HaMoriah? Why didn't he build place is Beis HaMikdash, where the Torah was given. And the Divrei Chaim said, because when a Yid stretches out his neck for Mesiras Nefesh for the Eibishter, and to die for the Eibishter, when a Yid stretches out his neck for the Eibishter, that's where the Eibishter is going to dwell. And he says, you should taminli, you should believe me, that Rabbi Yisroel is Ruzhin, every second of his life, he's stretching out his neck for the Eibishter, Al Kiddush Hashem v'Mesiras Nefesh. The son of the Ruzhiner, actually a little bit of a dark side to this whole story, was even though the Tzanzer traveled to the Ruzhiner, and it was mamish, a huge chassid of the huge. After the Ruzhiner passed away, the Ruzhiner's children became all big rebbes. Reb David of Chortkiv, and there was a few big rebbes. The Ruzhiner dynasty was a very powerful dynasty. The Tzanzer, at that point, decided that this whole hanaga of being dressed more modern and acting in wealth, it was good for the Ruzhiner, but not for the children. And he was also afraid that when the Chassidim will start copying the Rabbeim, is they'll start living wealthy, affluent lives, they'll start dressing modernish, and they're going to lose the old Chassidish levush. And the Tzanzer went out in a full... First he traveled to the Ruzhiner's children, demanding of them, because the Ruzhiner's wives, the Rebbitzins, all dressed more fashion, according to the fashion. And for those days, that everybody, all the old Rebbitzins, the other Rebbitzins of the Chassidish Rabbeim, were dressed like the Rebbitzins. And they were the first ones to wear modern clothing, and that was like considered a big no-no by the Galician Chassidim, by the Hungarian Chassidim, by the Galician Chassidim. Now the Tzanzer was the Ziknei Admurim, and the Tzanzer was a Talmud, a Goyin, a Tzaddik. And when the Tzanzer came out against the Ruzhiner children, it created one of the biggest machloikes in Jewish history. People don't. It's a very sad period of time when literally Galicia went up in flames in this nasty fight that was going on. It lasted for a long time. They gave out charamis and price. They didn't eat from the shchitas, and it was back and forth. But Baruch Hashem, it all came to an end. But these were these things that happened. Anyways, back to the Holy Ruzhiner. The Ruzhiner came back in Sadiger, and he put up his big... By the way, when the Ruzhiner was in jail, one of the famous teachings of the Ruzhiner was, Gam ki elech begeitz almavis. Even when I go in the valley of death, lo yira, I'm not afraid. Lo yira, I'm not afraid. Simply the pasuk says, lo yira ra, I don't feel any. Ki atem adi, because you're with me, God, so I don't fear anything. The Ruzhiner touched. Gam ki elech begeitz almavis. Even when I go in the shadows and the valleys of death, lo yira, I'm not afraid. Ra, you know what hurts me very deeply? Ra, you know what's really bad for me? Ki atem adi, that you're with me. In other words, your pain that you're having because you're with me, that hurts me. The fact that I am, but that you're with me, that hurts me. The Ruzhiner sent up, was a chassid, his name was Reb Nissen Beck, who went to Yerushalayim, went to Eretz Yisrael, and the Ruzhiner Chassidim were the first ones. They went from Tzfas to Yerushalayim, and they built a magnificent shul, not far from the Kaisel Amaravi, in the old city, not far from the Kaisel Amaravi. What happened was, a story like this Chassid, Reb Nissen Beck, came from Eretz Yisrael, and he related to the Ruzhiner as follows. He said that he heard from the Turkish, whatever they called them, the council then, it was the Turkish, I don't know, whatever, that the Tsar is planning to buy a huge plot of land. And he wants to put, not right in front of the Kaisel, not very close to the Kaisel Maravi, and put up a big church and a monastery. Greek Orthodox. And when he told this to the Ruzhiner said, Azoi, Funya. This is how he used to relate to the Russian government. Funya will sich abstellen. He wants to block our access to the Kaisel Amaravi. He's trying to block our passageway of prayers from going up. Mir Velenim Nishlazin. We're not going to let him do that. He took out a huge sum of money. He handed it to Rav Nissenbeck. He said, go back and buy that land, buy that piece of land. Don't haggle, no matter what the money is that they want, buy that piece of land. We're going to build a shul over there. So this is what happened. He went back, he bought the land, and he got the paperwork done and everything. And a short while after that, the Tsar is sending over there with his people to go to buy that land for whatever. But then it was too late, because the guy said it was sold already, and too late. And the Tsar was seething with anger when he found that. He says he's still, this Yid, he says, he's not leaving me alone. The Ruzhin very much wanted that shul to be built, and he said that from that shul, all the tefillas, that would be the shul of the Chassidim in Eretz Yisroel, and from there, all the tefillas would go up through their prayers. It was revealed to him in a dream that he would not build it, similar to the David HaMelech, but that his son, it would be in the next generation. So the next generation, after the Ruzhin passed away in Tafresh Lamed Beis, they got that shul built and it stood until the Jordanians demolished it in 1948. Where exactly it is, we'll probably find out where that shul, which was pretty close, they say, to the Kaisel Amaravi. It was the shul that the Holy Ruzhiner had built. Speak about the Ruzhiner being so royal. The Ruzhiner raised his hands up right before his passing, the same like Rabbeinu HaKadosh, like Rebbe, where he actually took his payas and he made a shvuah, he made an oath by his payas that I did not have any hana from this world whatsoever. I didn't have any bit of hana. It is known that when the Ruzhiner would wear his gold boots, and wherever he would go, he had shtivel made up of gold, and then they realized that there were no souls on the beneath. So in the Ruzhiner, because they suddenly, one time he was going somewhere, and they saw a trail of blood. And when they came later and they looked, they saw what happened is the Ruzhiner didn't wear any soles. So when he walked on the ground, his feet were getting cut, simply. And also what happened is the snow, he was walking on the snow. And the snow would get frozen and would tear his skin. And that was his kufim. But on the outside, he was dressed like a king and behaved like a melech, as if he's sitting. When the Chedushei Harim came to visit the Ruzhiner took the Chedushei Harim out to his stable, and he showed him, what do you say to my horses and my coach? And the Chedushei Harim let him know what he thinks about it. He said, Gam zeh hevel. This too is vanity, it's foolish. So the Holy Ruzhiner said, Hevel is Rosh Tevis, Hakol bara l'chvoidai. Everything was created for his honor. The Ruzhiner said about himself, Ich bin agrobian. I'm a coarse person. What does that mean? The Ruzhiner being coarse. He says everybody has their profession. A shoemaker, right? If you work with shoes, you're a shoemaker. You work with this, each thing. So if someone works with coarse things, then ich bin agrobian, because my avodah is lifting up the Gashmias. When Tzadikim had complaints against him for his royal behavior, someone he heard. Most of the Tzadikim were all bottled to him, as we mentioned earlier. Even those that at some time disagreed in the later generation, but not during the Ruzhiner, because everybody knew that he's like on a different scale. So when someone was told to the Ruzhiner, had tightness on him, the Ruzhiner said, now I understand. He says, when the four sons, we have Chacham, we have Rasha, we have Tam, and we have Ben Yedei Elishma. And it always bothered me, how come it doesn't say Chacham? How come it doesn't say Tzaddik Rasha? And because the opposite of a Rasha is a Tzaddik, not a Chacham. It should be Tzaddik. So the Ruzhiner said, because you can be a Tzaddik, I see now I understand. You can be a Tzaddik, but you can still ask the same question like the Rasha. What's this avoida? Lochem. Lochem means with the gashmias. It's called lochem. So ma avoida. What's the avoida with lochem, with the physical earthy things? A chacham doesn't ask that question. You can be a tzaddik, but not necessarily a chacham. That's what he was saying. A chacham, wise tzaddikim understand that there is a higher service.
How old was he when he was 50?
The Ruzhiner passed away when he was 54 years old. A young man, 54 years old. He got sick just right before his passing. Yeah. First, we had thousands of Chassidim. People paid, you know what it was? Chassidim paid, you had rich Chassidim, they paid to be able to see his children. The children were literally like princes. They all were dressed like little princes, like little Russian noblemen, like from the print. And it was like a schus to see them. And people went and paid huge amounts. They should let them peek and see these little kinderlach. I mean, it was mamish a royal court. The Ruzhin court was mamish royal. And as I said, it was absolutely certain by the Ruzhin Chassidim that the Ruzhin was Mashiach. According to some, the Ruzhin even sent to the Tzadikim in his generation that they should proclaim him Mashiach. Ben Yosef. He was Ben David. He comes from he comes from the Magid. He comes from that direct. The Magid is a inical from the. It was a chiddush. The Ruzhin, his entire life and his way of behavior and his whole. It was mamish a chiddush, but at the same time, there was the great Rabbi Aaron of Chernobyl, the son of Ramatal of Chernobyl. Ramatal of Chernobyl once came, by the way, to the Ruzhiner. And his niece, which was the Ruzhiner's wife, brought him and he said, let me show you his room. So he opened up the door, and through the crack of the door, Ramatal of Chernobyl looks in, and his wife says to her uncle, she says, "Nu, is das heilig? Is this holy? Take a look. Is this holy?" And he said, "Heilig?" He says, "This is kodesh kadashim. This is holy. This is the holy of holies." The Ruzhiner is the epitome, where it says, the Ruzhiner says a vort. The Ruzhiner says a teaching. When the Eibusha tells Yecheskel, Hanavi, show the Jewish people the building of the bayis. The pasuk says, show that, and it says, "V'yikolmu ma'avinei." They should haged la'ami tzura, something like that. Show my people the tzura of the Beis Hamikdash. V'yikolmu, they will be ashamed ma'avinei from their sins. What's the connection? Show them the tzura of the house, and they should be ashamed of their sins. What does one do with the other? So he says, because initially the pasuk says, "Oyel shikein ba'adam." The oil where the Eibishter was supposed to dwell, where is the Shekhinah supposed to dwell? In man. God is supposed to dwell in the heart of the man. Man is supposed to be the Mishkan of the Eibishter. But because we sinned with the Chet Egel, and the people weren't worthy to be anymore the dwelling of the Shekhinah, so that's where it had to go into a Mishkan. So that's why the Navi is saying, show them the Tzura Sam Mishkan, and they'll be embarrassed with their sins because they're the ones who are supposed to be the Mishkan, not. But the big Tzadikim, the Ruzhiner said, by them, it's not the Beis HaMikdash. But they themselves are the Mishkan, where the Eibishter himself is Shoichein inside the Tzadik. The Ruzhiner once quoted the holy Shpola Zayda. The Shpola Zayda said as follows. He says, Eibishter, just because you have to win a silly argument, we have to suffer so much. For a narash nitzchainas, that's what he said, the Shpola Zayda. Just because you need a win, and you can't give in. He said, what's the argument? The Eibishter has an argument with Knesset Yisroel. The Eibishter says, Shuva Elai, return to me, Vashuva Eleichem, and I will return to you. The Jewish people say to the Eibishter, Hashivenu Hashem Elecha. You return us to you, V'nashuva, we're going to do tshuva. So there's an argument between Yidden and the Eibishter. We're demanding God to do tshuva first, to take us back first, and then we're going to come back. And the Eibishter is waiting that we should do tshuva. And the Shpola said, for just to win this argument, this is what you're doing, thousands of years, just to win the argument. The Shpola Zayda took his beard, and he said, Ich schwer, ich mache shvua, I'm swearing by my holy beard, that's what he said. Ich schwer, that Jews will not do tshuva first. This is what he said to the Eibishter. Jews will not do tshuva first. So the Ruzhiner said, in the name of, he heard, the Ruzhiner said, then I too agree to this. Ich bin euch maskem, he said to this. And he says, and the reason is, because the Pasuk says, Mipnei chato'enu galinu ma'artzeinu. Because of our sins, we went into exile. Mipnei chato'enu. But he says that's reading it wrong. It's not because of our sins we went into exile. He said, when did the Eibishter decree the exile on the Jewish people? By Bris Bein Absarim. There was no sin then. No one ever sinned. Mipnei chate'enu, even before we sinned. Mipnei doesn't mean because of. Mipnei means like lifnei. Lifnei chate'enu, golinu ma'artzeinu. You decreed already the golus even before we sinned. Since you decreed the golus before we sinned, so you have to, the same way, you have to take us back even before we do tshuva. So he says, but one thing I will tell you, Eibishter, that the moment Melech HaMashiach will be revealed, the people, everybody will do tshuva. Alavel and Tzadikim. All the Jewish people will come to tshuva. Tshuva. You sing it.
It's very easy to learn this song. Shuva elai v'yashuva aleichem. Shuvu elai v'yashuva aleichem. Shuvu elai v'yashuva aleichem. Shuvu elai v'yashuva aleichem. Together, let's get it. Got it. Shuvu elai v'yashuva aleichem. 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 Shuvu elai v'yashuva aleichem.
Chaim Michi. Chaim. Tzemach Tzedek sent one of his greatest Chassidim, Rabbi Isaac of Hamler. The Tzemach Tzedek sent Rabbi Isaac of Hamler because the Tzemach Tzedek once, there was a issue in Russia, in Gzeira, and they wanted to know how to deal with this particular issue. And the Tzemach Tzedek said that he doesn't know at that point what to do. But he said, when the Heilige Ruzhin says Tehillim on Shabbos, it's open for him. All Shvilin de Rakia, everything opens up for him. And therefore, man darf sich Messiahit sein mit der Ruzhin. That's what he said. Tzemach Tzedek said, darf sich Messiahit sein mit der Heilige Ruzhin. So he sent Rabbi Isaac Hamler to go to Ruzhin. Okay, I'm going to make a confession. And that is, you see, in Chabad, it was very hard to get respect for any Rebbes. Not me. I'm saying the Chabad Chassidim were always a little snobby when it came to Rebbes because, you know, they were the Chabad Chassidim. Chabad is the Chabad, Chachma bin Adas. So like by them, every Rebbe was the... So to have such respect for the Ruzhiner, and the Ruzhin is not like the first generation. We're talking about 3-4 generations, and he was a young Rebbe. So that you realize, that's what I'm saying, you realize like who the Ruzhiner was, that he commanded such respect even by those who didn't acknowledge other Rabbeim, but the Ruzhiner was like on a whole different level. So the Tzemach Tzedek, Rabbi Isaac Hamler comes to Ruzhin, and he noticed a few interesting things. Number one, he saw when he was there were two people that were on a line. Two people came to the Ruzhiner, both of them wanted Haskama for their Sefer. One was a real Lamdish Sefer, and the other one was a Sefer of Sipurei Tzadikim. And so the Ruzhiner takes a look, and both of them presented. So the Ruzhiner takes the first of Sipurei Tzadikim, and he's reading through it and everything, and he's very happy with it, and he gives Haskama. And whatever, gives his... Then he takes the Sefer of Lamdis, he's looking through it, gives his approval. Rabbi Isaac is thinking to himself, I mean, this is a Sefer of... It's a Torah, the stories. And he had that thought for a moment, why is the Ruzhiner doing this? The Ruzhiner said something like this, Mitracht, they're thinking, he says, I forgot how he expressed himself regarding the Litvak or something that they're thinking. He says, Favos mir, why are we giving more honor to the Sipurei Shel Tzadikim? He says, no, mir firen sich wie die Eibishter. The Eibishter does the same thing. He doesn't start a Chodesh Hazel Lachem, which is all the mitzvahs, later. First he gives us Bereishis, which is all Sipurei Tzadikim. So mir firen sich, we follow the Eibishter's order. That we give the Sipurei Tzadikim a higher preference. Then it came Shabbos. The Ruzhiner was sitting with everyone, and Rabbi Isaac Hamler was there. Bechlal, Rabbi Isaac was very taken by the Ruzhiner, very taken by him. It was before Shabbos. The Ruzhiner was sitting just smoking his pipe, his lilke, but he can see on him that suddenly, and Rabbi Isaac said on the Ruzhiner that on Shabbos he can see literally he became a tefach taller. It was like he could. The Ruzhiner told Rabbi Isaac to stay, and the Ruzhiner said to him, I think he opened it to Tehillim or something, and then he said, "Medarf tan azoy azoy." This is what should be done regarding the Gezeira. And Ayer Rebbe is oich maskim mit mir, and your Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, is also in agreement with me. Yeah. Rabbi Isaac came back. There was a little story over there that there was a little bit of a chashash that Rabbi Isaac would stay in Ruzhin and the Tzemach Tzedek had to pull him back. It was a story like that. It's interesting that someone went by the Rebbe for $. I forgot who it was. So I just heard the story a few weeks ago. And someone told me it was his brother-in-law. Someone told me, and he said to the Rebbe that it was his birth, it was Gimel Cheshvan, the Ruzhin is yard site. And he says to the Rebbe that Haint is my Yom Aledes. So the Rebbe says, the Ruzhin is yard site. The Rebbe says, the Ruzhin is yard site. Aber das bleibt mal Chabad Chassid. That's yeah, your yard side is the Ruzhin, your birthday is on the Ruzhin's yard side, aber es bleiben a Chabad Chassid. It's ein Lubavitch, like that. It's interesting. The Tzemach Tzedek, in the middle of suddenly out of nowhere, it was raining in Lubavitch. Tzemach Tzedek suddenly turned and he reised Korea, and the Rebbetzin asked what happened, and he said the Ruzhin is nostalgic about it. That's how connected they were. So it was a day. Hear the story. It's gewaltige Meis. The Ruzhiner was receiving lots of people. Lots of Yidden were coming into the Ruzhiner, and there was a Yid coming. Suddenly appeared with mamish tattered clothing. He looked really scary. Mamish like tzarist, tzaflik. A guy that everybody would like move to the other side of the shul. Like, and he comes by the Ruzhiner and he tells the Ruzhiner, "I need to talk to you." The Ruzhiner says, "Ich bin jetzt vernummen mit Yidden. I'm busy with Jewish people helping. Come back in an hour." And that's what he says. "Ich darf reden mit dir in privat. I have to speak to you privately." So when the Chassidim saw that the Ruzhiner said to him, "Come back in an hour," they realized that this guy, he looks like that, but there's some mystery over here. And the Ruzhiner had a place where he would, if anything needed to be really private, there was like an inner room. They took one of the Choshev, a very special Chassidim, and he went and he hid somewhere really, really well in that room, and he was there hiding. This guy came back an hour later. The Ruzhiner takes him into that Cheder Yechidus alone, and both of them are standing, and the Ruzhiner is smoking, and this Yid starts telling Torah to the Ruzhiner, and the Ruzhiner is listening, and it's Torah, and it's going higher and higher and higher, and it's getting very, very high. And when it comes to the end, he like concludes it with a niggin. Finished. And then the Ruzhiner, then he starts a second time. This time it was mamish like Kabbalistic secrets of Torah like this. This guy is mamish shaking in his corner. And the Ruzhiner hears a second time. Then it was the third time, and also the same thing, he finished with a niggin. Then it was the third time that he said, and this person who was listening, he understood the first Torah a little bit, and then he totally lost him. He said, I had no idea what they were saying. After he finished, this Yid tells the Ruzhiner, he says, from where is this Torah from? That's what he asks the Ruzhiner. From Vemen is this Torah. And the Ruzhiner says, from Harav Tzaddik, Moshe, I forgot the last name, I forgot. He says, Moshe, somebody, whatever. That's who the Torah is from. So he says, he says, Zenter Taka the Tzaddik Hador. So you are really the Tzaddik Hador. And he says to the Ruzhin, I'll tell you, this Yid, he's hearing this. He says, I was one of the students of the Holy Kozhnetz Magen. And I was from the inner circle of the Kozhnetz Magen. And when the Kozhnetz Magen fell ill, and it looked like, and I saw that I'm losing my Rebbe, I was beside myself. I was in such, because I knew, where am I going to go to? Who am I going to go to? After the Kozhnetz, who can I go to? And I was in such agony. And the Ruzhiner said to me, not the Ruzhiner, the Kozhnetz Magen said to me, he said, go find in that town, go to that and that city, find Moshe so-and-so, and tell him I said that he should learn with you. It's a perfect Shlomo Carlebach story. I just can't. He says, I said that he should learn with you. So he travels to that town, and he's asking for Harav Tzaddik, HaKodesh, Moshe this. Nobody knows what he's talking about. And there's no such a person like this. No, I didn't know him. He went on for a while. And then someone Chaptzach, he says, what's his last name again? He says, that guy. So this is a guy, he's a low life. He's a let's, meaning he has a group of him and a group of leitzim. They sit and he makes jokes. He sits outside there and they're vulgar. And it's just disgusting. He's just, he says it's very not fine midas, and everybody's like very yucked out, but this guy is not. He says, where is he? And he tells him to go in the market. He sits around there with his group in the park. So he comes there, and he's sitting there with this, and they're laughing. So he walks over to him, and he's thinking to himself, this guy, how can it be? But if he said to him, Moshe, and he's the only one with that name in this town. So he goes over to him, and he says, from the other Ropshetz Wolf story, you can see that the Tzadikim Maggid had his sense of the Lamed Vav Tzadikim, who's around. So he says to him, Rebbe, he says, Rebbe, I want you should teach me. He starts laughing, and he calls out to the other guys. You see, I'm a Shuganat Tzedreita, he says. He calls me a Rebbe. He says, what do you think should we have him amongst our this? And laughing. And then the vulgarity got like really, really bad. It was like, and he said he never heard such litzanis, and it was like a bone chilling how it was being said. It was horrible. And all he wanted was just to pick himself up and run as fast as he can. But he figured, no, this is his chance. So he turns over back to him and he says, listen here. He says, the Tzadikim Maggid sent me to tell you that you should teach me. Suddenly sees the guy's face changes a little bit. He stands out, he finishes joking around with the guys, and he turns around and he leaves, and he's walking. So he follows him. He's walking and walking. And they get out of the he says to him, he says, you see that churva over there? He says, if you go into that churva and you're not going to leave until I die, and you'll sit there every day after midnight, from 12 after midnight, I'll come visit you and I'll learn with you. And I'll bring you mezainis, he said, for the next day. But your promise is that you're not going to leave until as long as I'm alive. Bist du maskim or bist nicht maskim? Do you agree to that arrangement or not? So he agreed. He says, and you see me, my tattered clothing is because I've been there for a nice while. And he related to and he says, and then when he said goodbye to me, he said that he's leaving. I said to him, "Was it sein mit mir? You're leaving me without a teacher." He said to me, he says, you don't need a teacher anymore. You're good. So he says, but still I need. So he says, if you want to know who the Tzaddik Ador is, he says, the one who will know when you tell him Torah from me, and he'll know who's the one who said it. So then that's the wissen who he is. So he came to the Ruzhin, told him Torah, and he said, it's from Arav Tzaddik, Moshe, whatever, immediately. I was able to learn on my side. L'chaim. So there was a specific person, I'll tell you an interesting thing. There was a specific person this Friday. I was walking around with a bunch of kuntreisim of my Maram of the Alter Rebbe, Mrs. Koch. I teach in the girls' school in the Olchana. So she gave it to me. She said, this is for my son-in-law. He wants you, Chassidus Mevueres. So I was walking home, back from school, and I stopped in front of Schwartz's Bakery in Beverly. A person asked me for that kuntras. I didn't think that person should have that. If you would know in what condition that person is, I didn't think that person should have the kuntras. I was afraid Pashat would be disrespected. And I said, no, I don't think you need this. And this person said, no, give it to me, give it to me. Talking about it totally Meshuggah. I'm like, Meshuggah should be Meshuggah. No, give it to me, give it to me. I said, no. So, no. I said, you don't even read Hebrew. I do read Hebrew. Insisted, and I gave it. Came home and I told my wife about it. I said, why in the world was this individual insisting on this contrast that they want? And I said, you never know. And my wife said, no. People like that, they don't behave like that. I said, you never know. What do you know? You never know.
You never know.
It was very strange that they wanted that kuntras. I can't explain to you. With an intensity. I need the kuntras. we hear these stories, they're around, or else the world couldn't stand. So what's the schlecht if one or two end up in Los Angeles? They just, not necessarily that you open up the house to them. Yeah. Everybody should remember to make a bracha achroina if you make bench. Lecha b'sod yeretzi oh yeah believe oh yeah mama 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 The Ruzhin once came out to the Chassidim. No, before we say that, we'll tell another few stories. Not a few, but just whatever you want. I'm taping it too. Yeah, it's already taped. So the Ruzhiner said, he asked the Ruzhiner about Chassidim davening late. How come he davens late? Chassidim daven late, sometimes past Mount Tefillah. So the Ruzhiner said before the Chet of the Eitz Hadas, everybody can daven at any time. After the Chet of the Eitz Hadas, it clogged up the access. You can't daven at any time. Avram Avinu opened up a special passage of time. In that time, in other words, Be'etzem, Mitzad, the way the Eibishter created us, we can all come directly to him anytime. When a blockage was made, so Avram Avinu used to daven in the morning. And he was mezachech that time, he purified that time. So now that time became a passageway that's open. Yitzchak Avinu came and burrowed through a new Zman, which is Zman of Mincha. At that time you can come and approach the Eibishter. Yaakov Avinu went and burrowed a different time that you can go through. And these are the Zmanei Tefillah that there are. Afterwards, when the Jewish people received the Torah, Paska Zahamasam, their Zahama went away, their filth went away. So again, there was no Zmanei Tefillah. A Yid can daven anytime. When they sinned afterwards, and again created these barriers, so again the Anshe Knesset Agdoila had to reopen up the passageways, the original passage. So they were misaken, Anshe Knesset Agdoila, Shachris Mincha Ma'ariv, corresponding to the others that did it. But it was like reopening what was open already once, but now. But these people, he says, that are not impacted by the Chet. I'm sorry, it wasn't a question on why Chassidim daven late. It was a question on why Tzadikim daven late. He said it's those that were not impacted neither by the Chet Egel and neither by the Chet of the Eitz Hadas. They have full access at any time. And the other explanation the Ruzhiner said in the name of the Ruzhiner also for davening late, he said when people want to come to the king, there are certain times that are set to come. You ask, you can't just come and it doesn't work that way. It's a king. You have an appointment, you have a time that you can come in and ask. He says that's only for those that are asking for their personal needs. But if someone is coming to speak to the king for things that matter to the king, things that are negaya to the king, not negaya to any. So those people, they have access all the time. Because the king, if it's negaya the king's life or the king's prestige, wealth, and whatever it is, then that's negaya all the time. These sets are only for people that are coming to ask. And that's the depth of tzadikim. And l'chura, what Chassidus brought into the consciousness of Chassidim is that you're living for something higher. And if you need anything, it's not what you need, it's what the Eibishter needs so that his will can be fulfilled in the world. So this idea is this. Someone once came to the Ruzhiner and he said, Rebbe, I sinned so much and I want to do tshuva. I want to really desperately do tshuva. But I don't know how to do tshuva. So the Rebbe said to him, the Ruzhin said, so how did you know how to sin? So he said, Rebbe, when I sinned, I first did what I did. And then I found out afterwards that it's a sin. So he said, no, tshuva is the same thing. First do it. First do it. And then you'll find out afterwards exactly how, what, where, and no, koydem to tshuva. First do tshuva. So now when I saw that story, I realized something very deep. The state of doing tshuva, what the Ruzhin is saying is that doing tshuva is not, it's not something that you have to like learn. Tshuva is, it's who you are, it's your essence. So just like Mitzad Nefesh Bahamas, you didn't have to learn how to sin. It's like a zindik. Tshuva is the same thing. If this is who you be'etzem are, your true being is your Nefesh Elokis, your true being is your neshama. Koydem to tshuva.
They said just do the next right thing.
and then the sophistication is going to come later. So the Holy Ruzhin once related a story, and this is the story, that there was a Yid, it was a simple Yid. One more story before, because this is the last, that has to be the last story. So this is one before. And these are very special. There were a group of farmers, and obviously farmers, they were very, very simple Yid. And there was a drought, and they needed rain. So they traveled to the Holy Ruzhin, and they asked that the Rebbe should get, the Rebbe soll bringen Regen, the Rebbe should bring rain. So the Ruzhin turned to them, he says in the Torah, so if you're going to learn Torah, it will be rain. And these Yidden were very, very simple, and very they weren't expecting an answer like that. They just wanted rain. They didn't want to get condition. So the simple Yid said, Yet Torah, nish Torah, mir darfen Regen. He says, Rebbe, he says, Yet Torah, nish Torah, mir darfen Regen. Yet Torah, no Torah, we need rain. The Ruzhin looked, and the Ruzhin turned around. When I gave you an answer, they totally did. And the Ruzhin left. As he's leaving, this other Yid, one of the Chevra, was a bissel mehr gelernt. A little, runs running after the Ruzhin. And he says, Rebbe, steht doch, Laman anasenu. By the Mon it says, Laman anasenu, I will test him. Hayelech b'terasi yemloi. Yes, he goes in my ways, or if he doesn't go in my ways. So simply is that. He says, I will test him whether you will listen or you won't listen. So he says, Rebbe, the pasuk says, Laman anasenu. Anasenu means I will raise you up like a banner. That Laman anasenu, that the Eibishter will raise us up. Hayelech b'terasi yemloi. Whether we learn Torah or we don't learn Torah. Hayelech b'terasi yemloi. The Ruzhin turned around with a big smile, and he gave them a bracha. It should come rain, and so geregend, and the rain came. Hayelech b'terasi. So that's the bracha. The bracha is hayelech b'terasi yemloi. Regen should come. Bracha should come for the Jewish people. Tzi azoi. And the last story is that the Ruzhin once related was a simple Yid once came to Shul Rosh Hashanah, and he didn't know much. It's the first time he ever davened with a minyan of Rosh Hashanah. And he's coming, he doesn't know how to read a machzor much, but he suddenly sees that people are crying. In the middle davening, or you get l'kei oirech din, people, it takes a while for people to warm up. By the time you get to l'kei oirech din, l'boichin l'vavos b'yom din, he sees that Yidden are shedding tears, a vein. He's thinking, what's up? Adults, mature, elderly people crying, he's fainting. So he's thinking, we're here already. He looks at the clock, so do tzvai shul. And we're getting hungry. They're probably hungry. So he's also thinking, I'm hungry. He's also thinking about it. He's hungry. He starts crying. Suddenly, a few minutes later, they start singing Atahu Hashem Elokeinu. It's a freilich and ning, and everybody's patching a freilich. So he's wondering. He says, "Patch freilich. What's up? Freilich? What happened? He didn't see anybody eat. Why are they suddenly so happy?" So he's wondering. So he can't come to it. Why did suddenly the whole shul become so happy? So he says, versteh, he said. When they left, they had a tzimis that was cooking, or a cholent, whatever it was that was cooking. And they realized that they're hungry. But the longer the tzimis cooks, the better the dish is going to be. So they're now happy because they're getting such a good dish. That's what they're singing. Suddenly comes the Tkiyah Shaifa. In Titzach, the people are crying again. So now he's shocked. Like, what happened? They just realized that the tzimis is going to be much better. So then he chaptzach the fire. This Yid. He says, I know why they're crying. Staka Bessa, the tzimis is going to be better. But wie lang can we warten? How long can you wait? But we're fart hungry. How long can you wait? And with that, the Ruzhin turned around and went out. And the people knew what the Ruzhin was saying. We know that the longer it takes till Mashiach comes, it's going to be better and better and better and better. But even for that, there comes a point. Wie lang kann man schon warten? That was the Ruzhiner's way he communicated up there. I'm not sure. I don't think they were makbid on Zman Tefillah.
Oy mi du shalayim